Welcome back to the pop culture discussion. I am your host Robert, and today we are reviewing The Last of Us Season 1 and ranking the episodes from worst to best. I will be doing a spoiler-free review of the entire series and then some slight spoilers for the ranking of the episodes. So if you haven't seen the show and are interested in it, feel free to check out my spoiler-free review right here. But if you have seen the show and are just curious on the ranking of the episodes, feel free to skip to that, as I will be talking about spoilers. And if you've seen the show already, then you have nothing to worry about. The story follows Joel, a survivor in a post-apocalyptic world full of infected zombie-like people, when he is tasked with transporting an immune survivor named Ellie across America in hopes of creating a cure. The show is based on the 2013 video game of the same name. Not only does it pull inspiration from the game, but it is a direct reenactment of almost every important cutscene from that video game, and a few of the action scenes as well. With the award-winning video game considered to be one of the best PlayStation exclusive video games of all time, the TV show had huge boots to fill in adapting the source material, and I can tell you right now, this is by far the greatest adaptation of any video game ever brought to screen.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
With the huge love and respect for the source material through the world building, the character arcs, the location settings, and the emotional writing, you can tell that the producers behind the scenes absolutely wanted to make this show. All of the emotionally driven reenactments are perfectly done, with easily the best performances I've ever seen from Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. The enhanced world building and every new character brought to the show excels every episode, making for much more in-depth character arcs and emotional character beats. I thought with all these new characters added, it might make the show feel a bit bloated, but with the writing being so flushed out, it actually ended up improving the world building, if anything. This show is much more of a drama than the game. There is a whole lot of action from the game that is sacrificed for world building and character arcs, which may annoy some of the fans from the game because some of the best action scenes from the game aren't in the show at all. It might also underwhelm people going into the show wanting an action series, because at the end of the day, you are definitely getting more of a character drama than anything. I'd say the exact length of this series as well isn't quite explained as well as the game. This series takes part over an entire year, but the way that the episodes are structured could make you think that it takes part over a few months, and because of that, it could make you feel like some of the character arcs are escalating way too quickly. I just didn't quite get that telling from the show. I only knew that because I played the game, and the game explains that through the seasons. I loved every single episode in this show. I love the extended world building. It answered a whole heap of questions that aren't even in the game. It made the infection so much more intense. Sure, I was a little disappointed that some of the action scenes from the game were sacrificed, but at the end of the day, this is still the best adaptation I have ever seen from a video game, and every single actor performing here is giving it their absolute all, and for that, I am giving this show a 10 out of 10. If you want a more in-depth review of the series, I have done a review and discussion of each individual episode. That's why this is just a short little review of the show. Now I will be moving forward with a ranking of the episodes. Okay, time for the episode ranking. Now I am going to be calling the episodes by their numbers, and I won't be calling the episodes by their actual names they are given in the show. I will be giving them my own titles for easier reference, not only for myself, but for you guys as well. Coming in at number 9 is episode 7, the Ellie's flashback episode. Now, just because it's in last place doesn't mean this is a bad episode at all. I did enjoy the flashback. I felt like Ellie's chemistry with Riley was adorable, and I enjoyed all of their cute little shenanigans together. I also enjoyed the scene with the infected, attacking and infecting both of them. That scene was super intense. The reason it's in last place here is that I was just underwhelmed with the current timeline. The fact that this episode was taken up by literally an entire flashback, and we get to see maybe like 2 minutes of an injured Joel, just was a little underwhelming to me. In the video game, Ellie has to fight infected raiders and climb through a helicopter to find him a medkit to patch him up, and it's just a lot more exciting in the game. I wasn't hoping for all of that here. I was just hoping for a little bit of that, and we got none of it, so yeah, that's why I was in last place for me. Coming in at number 8 is episode 4, the first real human threat episode. Joel and Ellie crashing their car and getting attacked by some raiders, and then trying to make their way through town without getting killed. This was still a really intense and great episode with some awesome reenactments straight from the game. But what this episode suffered from was it's the only episode in the show that feels like it's part of another episode and it's just been split in half. I feel like this episode and the following episode were literally the same episode, but they just chopped it in half, giving us the first part of the episode here, which is still good, but nowhere near as exciting as the last half of that episode. Every other episode in this show feels like it just stands on its own, except this one. This one just feels like it's attached to another episode, and it's just not as good as what's to come in that following episode. Coming in at number 7 is episode 6, the Joel Finds Tommy episode. This episode was great when it came to Pedro Pascal's performance. It is by far the highlights here, having him break down to Tommy about his emotional state and how the journey so far has really affected him. I was like, wow, this is by far the best performance I've ever seen from Pedro Pascal. And then that scene is followed up by Joel and Ellie's scene together, which is one of the most hard-hitting emotional scenes in the game, and the reenactment here was just perfect. This was a great episode for character growth, but otherwise it was probably one of the slower episodes in the show. Not that that's a bad thing at all, but like I said in my review, if you were looking for action, you're not really getting much of that here. You're getting a little bit at the end, and Joel getting stabbed and him falling over was a nice little cliffhanger too, but at the end of the day, this is absolutely just a character arc-driven episode. Coming in at number 6 was episode 2, the Clickers and Tess episode. This episode was fantastic for the horror. The Clickers looked amazing, and the infected group running at them at the end, with Tess getting that nasty kiss and blowing them all up, was so intense. As a lover of the game, an episode like this was exactly what I wanted. Coming in at number 5 was episode 3, the Bill and Frank episode. Oh my gosh, this episode hit so hard. It was so emotional, and so sad, but at the same time, so heartwarming, and just the relationship between these two men was just adorable. Sure, it escalated pretty quick how they got together, but once they had that little time jump and they'd spent a heap of time together, their relationship felt extremely realistic and heartfelt. And just them going out together, and Bill's line of "you were my purpose" hit so hard. Yeah, it was a bit of a shame that Bill and Ellie never got to meet, considering their hilarious dialogue in the game and how much they hate each other, and we didn't really get to clear out the town of infected with Bill either. But getting to see Frank alive and as an actual character in the show, as we're in the game he's already dead, I feel like was a justified sacrifice for the action. Coming in at number 4 is episode 8, the Ellie versus David episode. David is so creepy in this, he's fantastic in the game, and he's just as gross in the show. And we get one of the best reenactments here with Joel's interrogation scene, interrogating the two guys for Ellie's whereabouts. It's a fantastic scene from the game, and the reenactment here is just perfect. Obviously, the character arc for Ellie here being insanely aggressive and absolutely destroying David in the most brutal way sparks a violent side inside of Ellie, which will continue into season 2 and just show how brutal of a character she really is. And we really get to see how much Joel and Ellie really care for each other in this episode too. So that was super nice. Coming in at number 3 is episode 1, the infection episode. This episode was fantastic. It was like an hour and a half and it just shot by. So much was covered in just one episode. And that opening scene where the scientist is talking about the infection and how it works, none of that's in the game, and it is so good here. Sent literal chills down my spine watching that, and I was like, oh my gosh, we are in some trouble here. I loved all the scenes with Sarah, she was adorable. Her chemistry with Joel was fantastic, so her death hit just as hard here, and swapping out a bus hitting their car for a plane was just absolutely epic. I mean, sure, Joel and Tess didn't get to hunt down Robert and shoot him in the face, but besides from that, this episode was basically just an hour and a half reenactment, and it was fantastic. Coming in at number 2 is episode 9, the hospital massacre episode. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it was a really great ending to the show. I was a little underwhelmed that we didn't get to have Joel kill a heap of infected here, but they replaced it with a brand new scene and an original character with Ellie's mum giving birth to Ellie and fighting off an infected at the same time, and that scene was totally badass. Joel absolutely wrecking shop in the hospital and just killing everyone was a great mix of shocking and satisfying, and then Joel lying to Ellie at the end, and that sudden slap in the face of an ending hit just as hard as the video game did. And coming in at number 1 is episode 5, the Sam and Henry episode. This episode is perfect. It has the best character drama, best intense stakes, the best horror action scenes, and one of the most shocking endings of an episode. It's the perfect mix of everything that makes this show so brilliant, all jammed into just one episode. We get some incredible performances from the Sam and Henry actors, and then we get an insane action sequence with the infected. We get to see a bloater, we get to see a child clicker as well, which is a brand new thing in the show. That was a really creative and cool call. And we get a brand new villain here with an extremely satisfying death. And then also Sam and Henry's death ripped straight out of the game. That is a pure scene for scene reenactment, and it was just as sad here as it was in the game. Thank you for watching my review of The Last of Us and ranking of The Last of Us episodes. Do you agree with my ranking, or do you think I'm way off? I had a look on IMDb what these episodes have been rated, and my ranking is definitely not the same as IMDb. I can tell you that much. So yeah, if you think my ranking was off, feel free to rank your episodes below, or just put your favorite episode and your least favorite episode. Did you enjoy The Last of Us overall, or were you extremely underwhelmed with the amount of action that was missing? If that's the case, keep an eye out for my next Last of Us video. I will be making a Last of Us video dedicated to the action sequences in the first Last of Us video game that aren't in the show. So if that interests you, feel free to keep an eye out for that. If you've been enjoying my Last of Us content and you haven't slapped that subscribe button yet, please do. It means so much to me, and I will see you in my next video.